This is one of the most iconic albums of the late 2000s. Bon Iver's debut album Forever Forever Ago shaped the landscape of indie and folk music as we know it today in a major way. Everyone's heard the story. Singer-songwriter Justin Vernon, after going through two breakups, one with his long-term girlfriend and one with his band, DeArmond Edison, retreated to his father's cabin in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. He brought with him nothing but the bare minimum to survive and a few bits of musical equipment, hunted whatever food he could get, and almost died because of a bear on his front porch. But between trying to survive and wallowing in his sorrow, he wrote one of the best indie folk albums of the decade, if not of all time. I tell this story only to say that Forever isn't the album I'm going to be talking about today. No, this video is going to cover what I feel is his most interesting work, 2016's 22 A Million. Now those of you who aren't Bon Iver fans might look at this cover and think, what in the blue hell is that? And that's what I first thought too when I first saw it. I assure you though, if you look past the odd artwork, you'll find an album so sonically interesting that it'll blow your socks off. This is album Spotlight, and we're going to be looking at what it sounds like when you turn your voice into an instrument in 22 A Million. Before we dive into this, I just want to let y'all know that 103% of you aren't actually subscribed, so if you're so inclined, it would help my channel a lot if you could drop that down below 3 figures by subscribing, and maybe leaving a like on the video if you really want to. As I glossed over earlier, 22 A Million was released on September 30th, 2016. Let's have a look at the track list. Alright, that's another what the hell moment. Like, look at these. All the tracks have seemingly random numbers in their titles, weird symbols like infinity signs, dice, and diamonds, and one of the song titles is genuinely 90% underscores. So what's going on here? 22 is the number that actually has the most significance to Vernon, with him saying that it represents him. Growing up, it was his number when playing sports, he sets his alarms for 22 minutes after the hour, and even working on the opening track, the number 22 found its way to him. Hear that 2, 2 in the intro? It's actually just the word soon chopped up and pitch corrected. He's also explained that the other end of the album, the million, is what he calls the other. And everything between him and this other is just an infinite circle of everything life has thrown at him, which I think is profound, though contrived. See, I like to just look at this album as the art that it is. It doesn't need any special meaning, it doesn't need explaining. It stands alone as just a plainly amazing work of art. Unfortunately, you can't really get the full picture of this album if you don't at least know a bit about what goes into each track, so I'm going to be talking about that. Which you might have realized by now that I actually haven't looked at any of the content of the songs yet, so why don't we do that? It might be over soon. 22 Over Soon opens the album to a greatly experimental sound, with incredible vocal sampling. Vernon uses one note to really drive the song forward, and given that this is the song that symbolizes him in his eyes, his voice being the first thing you hear on it is really fitting. The lyrics cover topics from soul searching,
where you gonna look for confirmation, and if it's ever gonna happen,
to Vernon's contemplation of scrapping the whole Bon Iver project 5 years after his self-titled album won him several Grammys.
Within her eyes that lies a scissor.
It might be over soon.
These thoughts and ideas are covered up by a layer of prettiness, some having to do with the soothing saxophones in the background, and some having to do with Vernon's delivery of the lyrics. Alright, so obviously this song is a much different vibe than the opening track. You get about a 3-second break from when the beauty of 22 Over Soon fades out to prepare for a wall of noise bursting your eardrums because of the absolutely ridiculous loudness of the blown out drums on 10 Death Breast. We get more of the same kind of sound out of Vernon's vocal performance, which is really a testament to how autotune and vocoders can be used to enhance a piece of art, which is something I'll talk more in depth about with the next song. But for now, we can just appreciate what the technique brings to the table in this album so far. Towards the beginning of the song, we hear one of the many samples the band uses in this album. This is actually an incredibly altered and pitched up version of Stevie Nicks' Wild Heart, though only a warm-up version found in what Vernon describes as his favorite YouTube video. The lyrics in this one are a bit more dark than the beginning, with Vernon making gambling references in lines like "I'll cut you in," along with "and I'll rack it up." Additionally, he makes a very apt identification of the music surrounding his vocals.
Definitely
but also it's sort of a metaphor for the feeling of sensory overload our protagonist is experiencing.
Down along the creek, I remember something.
715 Creeks doesn't have any instruments. The entire song is just Vernon singing a cappella using a vocoder and auto-tune. We're actually going to talk about the specific program he used here because it's something one of his sound engineers actually created through different uses of hardware and software. It's called the Messina after its creator Chris Messina, and this program allows Vernon to harness the softer side of auto-tune, like the side that rappers such as T-Pain use in their music, and create something that hasn't been heard before in the indie scene. This song feels like one of the most vulnerable, not just for Vernon's solo performance and the sort of broken tone he takes on throughout it, but also for its lyrical content. Over the course of the track, he laments a relationship, likely a more intimate one, but one he feels abandoned in. Lyrics like,
Heard the heron hurried away.
And
Honey, understand that I have been left here in the reeds.
show this mental torment Vernon went through at the end of this relationship and how it left him hurt and sort of hollow. 33 God has an argument to be the most beautiful song I've ever heard. Anytime I hear those first few piano notes, I instantly prepare myself so as to not cry at it. We get another sample right at the start from Jim Ed Brown's 1971 song Morning, and honestly it fits the fleeting emotion that the album's taken on so far. It still has that sort of fractured and ambient production in the instrumental that's been so prevalent throughout the course of the album, and that's especially shown in the choppy vocal sample that gets tossed in throughout the beginning of this song. It goes without saying that there's a ton of religious influence on this song based on the title of it alone. We get a couple samples that reinforce that, the main one being from Paolo Nutini's Iron Sky, which functions as 33 God's first pre-chorus. We get more religious imagery at the end of the song, though, where Vernon makes reference to Saint Bede and to his own shedding of his spiritualism during the grand climax of the track.
I didn't need you that night, not gonna need you anytime. It's gonna take it as it goes. I could go forward in the night, but I better fold my clothes.
And finally, in the outro of the song, we get a very pitched down reference to Psalm 22. 29 hashtag Stratford Apartments is a throwback to more classic Bon Iver, specifically the same type of sound we heard from Forever. The folksy guitar adds that layer of nostalgia for that album to this song, but the production and performance from Vernon modernized that style to a certain degree. Most of the singing on the track is run through the Messina, giving it that chorus feel with multiple people singing in unison despite the fact that it's only Vernon. Additionally, we get this lyric which really enforces the return to an older sound while also mutating it slightly.
Hallucinating Claire.
Unfortunately, that's really about all this song brings to the table. "666 Upside Down Cross" is obviously another song which delves deeply into Vernon's own religious views. I mean, the title is literally two marks of the beast conjoined together, so it'd be pretty difficult to not make this religiously charged. Anyway, it's not just the title that's religious in nature. For example, the first lyric of the song makes reference to so many different religious symbols.
6 is hanging the door. What kind of shit to ignore? I've cut the cloth.
Firstly, we have another reference to 666 and its historical conflation with bad luck and evil. "I've cut the cloth" makes reference to the veil which covers the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is kept and can only be accessed once a year on Yom Kippur. Another important lyric in this song, if we're talking about religious influence, is this.
I'm still standing in the need of prayer.
As prayer is what is often associated, at least within the Christian faith, with defeating the devil. It also makes reference to standing in the need, an old African American spiritual song. I don't know how else to describe this song other than I feel it on a molecular level. Every atom in my body shakes when this song plays, and everything but Vernon's voice is so fear and anxiety inducing that it basically cuts off any and all cranial function I have left for the 3.5 minutes it plays for. The title and about 30% of the lyrics make reference to moon water, which is apparently a witchcraft thing in which water is infused with the power of the moon and used to make potions. We also get this lyric, which appears in 2 songs from this one. According to the Genius annotation for this one, though, it's not worth anything lyrically because the 2 songs are complete opposites in subject matter, so throw it in the trash, I guess. Eight Circle is unequivocally, inarguably the best song on this album. Its use of the saxophone as the core of the song, as opposed to most of the other songs where it's been used sparingly, is amazing to me because it almost feels like a culmination or a climax of everything on this album, despite the fact there's still 2 songs after this one. I genuinely have very few words to describe this song. I just suggest you listen to it along with the rest of the album if you haven't yet, but I'm just going to be stealing words to describe it from the comments section under the song's music video. Commented 1 year ago by Levily BA8722. This song is akin to the Psalms of King David. I'm not religious, but I've felt this for 6 years. This song portrays a longing to know God on this earth below heaven. The entire album bears Justin's history of spiritual pondering. It's a cold and it's a broken hallelujah. Underscores. 45 is a much more sonically relaxed song than 8 Circle, still providing that soothing saxophone, but nothing else aside from that and Vernon's vocals in the mix for the majority of this song. This song focuses on fire in contrast with 21 Moonwater's focus on water. The fire allusions made throughout the song are actually references to Vernon's depression and his anxiety, which he openly talked about on a BBC Radio 1 interview around the time of the release of his latest album, I.
If that is the case, still, what events did you cover with this album? What happened in the interim of you doing it?
Well, I think getting through a very anxiety-ridden period of my life. Never had that before, never quite understood what it could do to people. I had to cancel a tour, and it really got me, you know, and I was stunned by it a bit.
Aside from that, we get the same 5 Lane Divers lyric we heard in 21 Moonwater, and not really much else. The title of this track is interesting because it's actually kind of clever. If you take the track number as part of the title, then it's 1 with 6 zeros, million. Anyway, Vernon's lyrics are just as poignant as always here, immediately diving into existentialism as well as a sort of nihilism and self-destruction where he is welcoming the things that hurt him deeply.
If it's harm me, it'll harm me, I'll let it in.
We get another sample from Fionn Regan's Abacus throughout this track, which reinforces the idea of letting go of attachments that has been introduced in certain other songs throughout the project. The performance and instrumental are both pretty and climactic, though not in the typical way a climax would occur in a song or an album. Instead of being loud or energetic, it serves almost to take all of the ideas strewn throughout the album and tie them up with a neat little bow. So why am I so enthralled with 22 A Million? Simply put, I think it's a really compelling work of art that encapsulates universal struggles with depression, anxiety, existentialism, religion, and figuring out how to deal with those thoughts and those feelings. Bon Iver takes the idea of an existential crisis and digitizes it, adding layer upon layer of encryption within the lyrics and glitchiness into the instrumentals. I hope that this maybe gets you to listen to the album, even if you've already listened before, since it's such a personal and moving work. Alright, I've got to go now. I need to figure out how to put numbers on all these days.
It harms me like a